Hello, everyone. We are live here with the Total NASL Roundtable. Once again, hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. I know I'm so excited about this show. We're going to talk about Rowdies preseason to England, talk about the Chicago Sting Supporters Trust. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. I know I'm so excited about this. Well, someone's enjoying the show already. So
Technical difficulties.
so I'm joined by Jason, Theo. Once again, how are you guys doing tonight on this wonderful, wonderful Thursday night?
Doing quite well. Appreciate it. We're gonna get snow tomorrow, so we're staying warm inside.
How
Yeah,
about you?
it's the coldest night of the year so far in Ottawa. It's in Celsius, minus like 30 with the wind chill. It's
Wow.
madness.
I
Yeah.
didn't know Canada had the coldest night. I thought it was just cold there the whole winter.
No, we've had a really, really mild winter because of El Nino.
Okay.
And today was pretty brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, so besides the weather, let's get talking about Jason's Railhawks because they signed a brand new player. They have another preseason match. So, Jason, can you just discuss everything that's going on there in Cary?
Sure. Over the past week-ish, we've had two re-signs in Capono Low, who is our Mr. Railhawk. This is his 10th season with the Railhawks, which is very exciting. He's a defender. I mean, I know he's getting a little bit up there in age. He hasn't seen as many minutes over the past few seasons, but he's definitely always a fan favorite just because of how long of a career he's had with the Railhawks. Our other signing, one of our captains from last season, Connor Tobin. So Connor Tobin, this is his third year with the Railhawks. We're very excited to see him back. He played the most minutes for the Railhawks last season. As a defender, he even scored 2 goals, but overall, it's just a huge emotional leader. So very exciting to see him re-sign. Our newest signing and newest member to the team formerly played for not only the Ottawa Fury last year, but Fort Lauderdale the year before that, in Ali Hassan. So just getting a chance to hear a little bit from Theo and his thoughts on him, it sounds like he was a guy that was definitely a quality producing forward, and thanks to Heineman coming on strong at the end of the year, maybe didn't see as many minutes as he could have. I'm excited to see him in the Railhawks orange and blue, just because I know at the forward position we're a little bit shallow right now. We only have 2 other forwards on roster, so Ali Hassan makes our third. So it's definitely going to be exciting to see just a team come more into completion of really filling in all the spots. What John mentioned earlier about our newest preseason game, the last week of preseason, the last weekend of March, we're going to be playing a Liga MX team, which is a Toluca FC. Toluca currently sits in 2nd place in Liga MX, so they're definitely going to be bringing in a fairly talented squad. Now, though they are 2nd in Liga MX, I'm just looking across how they've actually fared playing away, and this is by far going to be their furthest away match, playing all the way in Cary. They only have 1 win out of 17 games so far playing away. So I guess they must be a heck of a home team if they're sitting in 2nd in Liga MX.
And you
It'll
even
be a
said
great
that,
opportunity.
Jason, you even said that the Railhawks never lost a game against a Mexican side.
Well, yeah, we're 1-0 to my knowledge. I think it was 2 years ago we played Puebla FC and we ended up beating them 2-1. Now,
Wow.
one nice little trivia bit against Puebla FC was that was the last game in our 25-game home unbeaten streak from 2 seasons ago. So that was the last. That was game number 25 in our very I guess at this point fabled unbeaten streak at Wake Med. But we are definitely excited for the game. It'd be a nice challenge right before the actual season starts. One week after that, right again at home. So definitely gearing up well for the season. So Theo, what about you out in Ottawa? What seems to be the news there?
I get the feeling that new head coach Paul Dalglish can't wait to get the season underway, at least the preseason, to switch the narrative from all the players that the Fury are bleeding out to the rest of the NASL and back to actually results on the field. Because, to be honest, the criticism that's come down this winter is fully deserved. The best players that the Fury had last year in their run to the championship final are gone, except maybe for Alves in central defense and Paiser in goal. Those are the two that were in the league best 11. And other than that, it's looking pretty grim in terms of reinforcements. There's some things to get excited about. There's a lot of unknowns. A lot of USL players making the jump to NASL. And the latest news was a left back who was, once again, a fan favorite in Ottawa, got transferred. That brings the tally of transfers that were requested to 5. 5 requested transfers in one off season points to something being off.
Theo, what seems to be the issue there? Is it a money thing of trying to re-sign these players that played so well last year?
That's a great question, Jason. Nobody can pin that down, and it's difficult to get a straight answer. Here are the theories. Paul Dalglish is difficult to get along with, or he's not selling the club, doing a poor job of selling what the Fury are capable of, or what he's capable of, because it hasn't helped in retaining any players at all. Or it's a money issue. We all know that the Canadian dollar is at about 70 cents on the American dollar, and that doesn't help issues. That's always been an issue for Canadian teams playing in North American leagues, where the U.S. dollar is the going rate of things. I'm pretty sure that I actually have been told that the contracts in Ottawa are signed in Canadian dollars, but when a player can make Canadian dollars or U.S. dollars, he's going to go pick making the U.S. dollars in the U.S. So it could be a financial issue. If it's a financial issue, even with the dollar being as weak as it is right now, it still raises some questions. This is a 3-year franchise going into its 3rd year, and we're seeing a purge of players, and if the reason is money, then there's questions to be asked. What's going on? And the reason why it's difficult to get a proper answer out of the club is that there are no proper journalists covering the club anymore. There was a merger in Ottawa of the 2 major English language newspapers, the Ottawa Sun and the Ottawa Citizen, and the reporter, well, 2 of the reporters, but the main one who was covering the Fury extensively, like this was cover to cover, like great coverage. It was Chris Hoffley, and he got let go by the Ottawa Sun. He got scooped up by the Ottawa Fury.
Oseg.
Yeah, they picked him up, and I'm really happy for Chris. He's a really fantastic person, as well as a talented writer, and he's a great pickup for OSEG in terms of their communications department. The problem is we're left with the French language reporters, which there's quality there, there's no doubt, but on the English side, I don't know what the Citizen and the Sun's plans are for covering the team. So far, it's a mix of a guy who covers golf.
Well, that's.
And I'm going simply by his Twitter. I'm going simply by his Twitter handle, his Twitter description. Sorry, I didn't really research this, but he's the one who's writing a few articles on the Fury here and there, and then nothing other than that. It's going to be difficult for bloggers like myself. I'm not a trained journalist in any way. I can write an article, but in terms of going after the hard news, that's a bit more difficult for me to do. It's not something that I'm trained to do. I write on the Fury because I love soccer so much. And so either the bloggers out there start learning the skills of a journalist really quickly, or you're going to get a bunch of puff pieces out of the Fury communications department, and that'll be the best that you'll get in terms of coverage. That's my concern. Nothing of this has borne out yet. We have a season coming up, but so far it's a really negative feeling over. There's a black cloud over the franchise, I find, this winter, and I am really looking forward, as I said, Paul, as Paul Dalglish must be, to playing some games and just changing the story, because right now it's pretty dire.
Talking about Chris Hoffley, I met him championship final weekend before the match. Great guy. He knows what he's talking about. Like as Theo said, he was really the only guy like hardcore covering the team.
Yeah, towards the end of that run, the Fury were getting massive media attention in Ottawa. Every outlet was sending reporters, both French and English, radio, television, newspapers. All of them were covering it, but these were not dedicated writers to the Fury. These were mostly journalists that were covering other beats that were assigned to the Fury because they were doing so well and becoming a news story in Ottawa. Hoffley was there from the beginning, covering the Fury for the Sun, and I was no fan of that newspaper, but I was a fan of their sports coverage, and Hoffley was top-notch in terms of covering the team.
And their news coverage, the day before, right, Theo, they had like back page. Even the day after the final, they had so much coverage, even though they lost, but like the city came all together to root on their team, which is something that we always want for our club.
Yep, absolutely. It was a nice thing last season. I'm just concerned that the Fury supporters, the Fury Nation, if you will have to draw on that as a great memory, sort of what Jason was just alluding to with that fabled season where they went 26 undefeated at home. My hopes are not very high for the Fury in 2016, let's just say that.
So talking about the Cosmos, a preseason match out of nowhere, a couple days ago, a college here in Brooklyn called LIU, they announced that they would be playing the Cosmos. But this is more historic than it should be. This will be the Cosmos' first local preseason match because the Cosmos, since their reboot era, they never played a preseason match locally. And I don't know why people can make up excuses and say, well, it's the weather, it's because maybe Hofstra is not available. But they will be playing a college. But the downside to this was that it was scheduled for Saturday, but then they canceled it and rescheduled it on Friday afternoon. So because of the bad weather, the very cold conditions that we will be experiencing on Saturday. So, yeah, Friday afternoon. Don't know who's going to make it out to the match, but it's sort of exciting that we have our first local preseason match.
Yeah, the Fury will also have a preseason match this Friday. No, not this Friday. That would be tomorrow. Next Friday, they will be playing a match under the bubble dome of Branchot-Brière complex in Gatineau, which is the town just across the river in Quebec. And that's where they've been there before. The first two seasons they've had a lot of training there for preseason. They will be taking on the Fury Academy, so you'll get to see the young players take on the pro team at Branchot-Brière. I believe the time next Friday is at 10:30 in the morning, and it's free. So anybody who wants to check out preseason soccer, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of people because we're desperate to see some footy after a winter of winter. A winter of winter.
Are you going to be attending the 10:30 a.m. kickoff?
I certainly will.
So we will count on you to cover that match.
Oh, yeah.
Good luck.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess since you guys are talking about preseason, I know the Railhawks haven't started theirs yet, but there was a pretty exciting match this past weekend. Too bad Logie's not on here to talk about it, but the Jacksonville Armada actually took down MLS's Philadelphia Union 1-0 very late in the game. In a very freezing rain, cold game that I think Logie and his 904 group we're pretty much the only boys out there. But it was pretty cool to see an NASL team take down an MLS, even though I'm sure they're maybe not playing their A squad with the Philadelphia Union, but nonetheless, just one shield against another. It's always great to see an NASL team take down an MLS team.
And the Armada, they're going to play Orlando City, which should be a very, very heated matchup this Saturday. So it should be very exciting for supporters down in Jacksonville. And what was very exciting today is that I read that the Armada launched their own app. So it's sort of cool how this league is going with technology. I know in 11 they announced their first app. I think they were the first club to do it. The Cosmos, they didn't announce their own app, but they made their own keyboard in a way with their own Cosmos emojis, which was pretty cool. So yeah, and then the Armada, they announced their own app. So second team, do we see maybe the Railhawks and the Fury going with this? Because I know the Railhawks have a new owner. He may be up for something like that.
We are in the Research Triangle Park, so I mean we're in engineering mecca right now. So that'd be pretty cool if they did come up with something. You just have to have someone with the right enough interest to do so. It'd be pretty cool. I like that idea. I'll have to check. I mean, even though I'm not a Armada fan, I'd still be worth getting that app just to see what they're actually doing.
Yeah, because you stay connected with your club instead of going on Twitter or going on some other outlet. The club has everything there for you on this app. So say the schedule, the roster. Say you can buy tickets, you can buy merchandise on the site. You know what I mean? So this is like a one-place hub for everything about your favorite club. So hopefully a lot more clubs get on this train to get all these apps. So talking about maybe one of the biggest news today, the Chicago Sting Supporters Trust, and we all know that they tried, and it took them 3 years, they tried to get a club in Chicago. And February 15th is when the Chicago NASL ownership and the people within this club are going to come together, announce a site launch. Peter Wilth is going to be there, and probably a Q&A. They're going to ask questions. What's the intentions? What's the future for this club? And the Chicago Sting announced a statement here after nearly 3 years of work by its members and other interested supporters to bring a NASL franchise to the city. The Chicago Sting Supporters Trust has regrettably suspended its operations indefinitely. The trust, after extensive discussions with representatives of the planned NASL club, was unable to come to terms with current club leadership as our respective visions do not align. Nevertheless, we wish those tasked with building Chicago's NASL club the best of luck and offer heartfelt thanks to those who supported our work and led interest to our project. So Chicago Sting, we're very excited for this project. They sort of led this project and sort of showed the NASL that there were supporters to be here. And what really hurts me was that these supporters were going to really spend a lot of money into this club, over $2 million, to get this club off the ground, and they just don't take them seriously. They just shoot them down.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's something that a lot of people were excited about in Canada and the U.S. to see people-powered ownership hopefully take flight, as something that was attempted in Atlanta to save the Silverbacks. This Chicago thing looked really promising. There's other clubs in North America, like Nashville and I believe Detroit, who have fan membership that pretty much finances the teams. And this is something that is a lot more common in other parts of the world. And it's a big disappointment that couldn't take the day in Chicago. But there's still hope. Chicago NASL, the Peter Wilt Group, put out a statement after the Chicago Sting Supporters Trust statement, and I'll read from it right now. It says, in part, I'll quote here from the middle, "We are excited to move forward with a Supporters Trust ownership component for Chicago NASL. The vision of Chicago NASL is to integrate fans into the club with a public supporters component in the investment and give the trust representation in the club's governance. So the door does not appear to be closed. Today's statement from the Sting Trust appeared to be like, we're putting our hands up, we don't think this is happening. But Chicago NASL came right back out and said, look, the door's not closed. We want this to be a component of our club. So it's interesting. It's a developing story. And so for those who hope to see people power like we saw in Liverpool this week with ticket prices going up at Liverpool and the fans essentially rebelling and the club immediately walking that back and saying, okay, no, we hear you. The prices will remain at the rates that they are. That is a true supporter power, and it's something that is common throughout the world of football, of soccer. Not here because of the way that things are structured traditionally, with owners owning, fans paying. That's essentially the model in North America. And a lot of us, myself included, we're hoping to see a little change here. And hopefully we can get a little bit of that going in Chicago if that door is still open from the Peter Wilt group.
Yeah, I do feel bad for the Chicago Sting supporter trust group. I guess, all pun intended, I'm sure it stung when they had Peter Wilt and their group kind of deny their opportunity to make the investment that they wanted to make. I believe, from reading into it a little bit, they were ready to make a 10% investment into the local Chicago team with a little over $2 million that they had. But Peter Wilt and his investor group said, no, we'll give you 5, without even, I guess, according to reports that I've seen, without even looking at the actual $2 million and the generation of their money. They were saying you can have 5% stake. However, again, the supporter trust, they felt they had the money for a 10% stake in the club, and they felt insulted, that's kind of why they've kind of put their hands up, is feeling insulted of not getting the stake in the club that they really wanted. And also felt insulted that they were the ones really drumming up the interest in the Chicago area of getting an NASL team to begin with. And in swoops in Peter Wilt. I know Peter Wilt is a Chicago native, helped build up the Chicago Fire, but still, you almost feel like the Chicago Sting kind of got Winnie the Pooh with getting their honey taken away after putting in all the hard work.
Or Lucy with the
football beginning to grow. Yeah. So it's you feel bad for them, but bottom line, it looks pretty promising that the Chicago area is going to get an NASL team, which at the end of the day was the original goal.
Right.
I know they wanted to have the local support of ownership into it. Maybe that'll come back to the picture if they ever revisit it. Bottom line, I'm excited to see the NASL team join the Chicago area.
That's absolutely true. And when you think about it, there's 2 teams potentially in 2017 joining NASL that are 2 iconic markets of the U.S. and the world, Chicago and San Francisco. And so that's a really big positive for NASL. I mean, you lose Minnesota, you can just say, hey, big deal, Minnesota. We've got Chicago with a downtown stadium, which is the talk, and San Francisco with a downtown stadium, which is also rumored. So those are really positive things happening in the NASL when you take away the disappointment of the Sting Trust not being successful in bringing that dream to fruition.
So let's discuss Rowdies preseason. They're going to England, guys. This is huge. A NASL club growing their brand in England is very important. I always preach that. Like, personally, I really want to see my Cosmos go abroad, grow their brand, play some competitive matches in a country where it's suitable for them to go to, where it makes sense for the club. But for the Rowdies, it makes sense for them to go to England. They will play Nottingham Forest 11 on March 9th. They will play Notts County 11 and close the tour on March 16th against an 11 from Premier League leading Leicester City. So it doesn't matter what type of player you're playing, because they're not going to be playing against Jamie Vardy. If they do, shouts out to the Rowdies, but they're not. They might be playing against the reserve side. I don't know, but it's an 11 where it's not very important for Leicester. But again, it doesn't matter what players they're playing against, but just for the Rowdies to be going to England, playing against some competitive teams that are in form, that are in their season, deep into their season, is just great for the Rowdies going into the season.
I feel like these Florida teams just keep one-upping each other left and right with these preseason schedules. I mean, you had Fort Lauderdale Strikers have an early season tournament with some big-name European teams, which is pretty cool. Now you have rumors they're going out to China.
Yep.
So then you have the Rowdies going out to England. You have Jacksonville playing all these MLS teams. So I just feel like they've been one-upping each other big time, and it's going to be really exciting to see what those teams are going to look like with getting all this off-season experience. But I like you said earlier, they're not going to be playing the A squads of many of these big-name teams, but just getting the exposure and even joining new markets. I believe there's some teams, I'm trying to remember who it was, I think it was Puerto Rico, was even going to be doing some trials out in the LA area. And I think one of the reasons Fort Lauderdale wants to go out to China is to even try out potentially a few native people in that general area to potentially sign by season starter at some point during the season. So there's an undercard of why they're even going to all these international places to look for potential talent to join their own squads later on in the year.
Yeah, and just to highlight Ottawa's preseason in that light, when you're looking at China, you're looking at England, you're looking at that preseason tournament in Tampa, and the Strikers one that they had against Bundesliga teams. The Fury are playing their academy on next Friday, and then they're going to Arizona to play in the 11. They're going to play Toronto FC's B team, the USL team. They're going to play FC Montreal's USL team. When you put all the evidence in place, you sort of build a picture that the money's an issue. Like there isn't a lot of spending going on right now in Furyland, except with hiring the former news guys from the Sun and Sinisha from the French side. But those are communications guys. It's really interesting to see. And also the transfers of 5 players, I'm going back on that, but the money aspect of that is something that's unique, kind of doesn't get seen a lot in NASL or even in MLS. There's not a lot of transfers for cash. So that's another aspect that's interesting to add to the evidence that money might be an issue with OSAG right now, or at least for the budget of the Fury. Who knows if it's affecting the other franchises.
I know for a fact it's a Railhawks issue. I know we are under new ownership this year, but last year when we were still owned by Traffic, we only had one preseason matchup, which was like a week before the season started.
Yeah, that's an issue.
We had a South Korean team come in. This year, really, outside of that Toluca game that I mentioned earlier, our other matches, 2 of them are against local colleges within spitting distance from Wake Med. And we have one against Richmond, or we have a home and away against Richmond Kickers, which is, again, pretty close by. And we have a away match at Charlotte Independent. So all teams, I mean, the furthest we're going away is, Richmond or Charlotte. They're about, respectively, 3-hour drives in different directions. So, again, I know it's going to be a financial decision to make. But I know the Fury, you're not alone on that. So
yeah.
It was the Railhawks issues last year. I'm not going to say it's a quote-unquote issue because it's an improvement over last season for the Railhawks. We'll see where it continues to trend for us out here in Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you asked Fury supporters if they'd rather have a big preseason matchup against a European club or use that money to sign a quality player, they'd take the quality player 9 times out of 10, probably. I haven't done that poll, but I'm assuming that would be the case.
Fury supporters, we want to know what you guys think. You can send in your questions on Twitter at Total NASL TV, or leave your comments in the comment section below, and we may discuss it next week. We have a question from @Brando101074. Jose R. Martinez, how are you doing? Thank you for listening and hearing us and watching us every single week. We really appreciate it. He wants us to talk about the Fort Lauderdale Strikers signing of Mateus Carvalho. Theo, do you want to tackle this one?
Sure. Mateus Carvalho is a player who's Brazilian. He's a forward, signing with the Strikers this week. He has a pedigree. He's only 23 years old. He was under contract at Fluminense in Serie A. No, Fluminense, sorry, in Brazil. But he was on loan at Monaco of the French league, the Ligue 1 in France. So Monaco is a big club. It's where Thierry Henry and Arsène Wenger and David Trezeguet all came from. Big club in France, and he was on loan there, not for a long time. He only had 8 appearances. He scored a goal. He played in the Champions League at some point, a few minutes here and there, nothing grand. But it's the potential that's really interesting here. He's a young player, Brazilian, coming to North America, the North American Soccer League, to essentially prove that he can be a top player. That's a switch from what we've seen in the past of older players coming to the NASL to sort of put a cap on their career, like Raul or Marcos Senna. But here we have a youngster who has tons of potential, and playing for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. They've got themselves a really nice striker, for lack of a better term. And it should be exciting to watch those Florida derbies this year. I find that those clubs have really stepped up to the plate in terms of their signings, in terms of their development, and I think Florida is going to be a tough place to go play in 2016 for any outsider club. I'm going to plug my NASL player pool here while we're at it. Mateus Carvalho is a great pickup for the Strikers, but he might be a real great player for the NASL player pool. The way that it works is you're going to be picking 11 players, a 4-4-2 essentially with a keeper, and there's a ton of rules involved, but it's not a money-based thing. It's pretty simple. You pick 11 players and off you go with a few subs here and there during the season. If you want more information, get in touch with me at Mimglow, MIMGLOW. It's right there below, and we'll set you up. It's cheap, $10 for the season, and all of the money that we take from the entry fee goes back into the prize pot. I'm not doing this to make money. I just want to have fun with an NASL player pool, which hasn't existed to this point.
So is that Canadian dollars or?
Oh, good question. We're going to say 10 Canadian dollars, but yeah, that is a good question. I haven't really considered that. Thank you, John. I'll work that out, and I'll put out a post on that.
Hey, keep us posted. We all want to know about the pools. My goalkeeper is going to be Paiser. I want to pick June Hour, but Paiser, he knows what he's doing, and hopefully he knows what he's doing in 2016 because he was the best goalkeeper in 2015. And do you think he can keep it up?
Well, he can keep it up. I mean, he's a keeper, and he's only a year older, I guess you would say, and they can go for a while at his age. I think he's 37 this year or 38. The question mark is, what does he have in front of him? Rafael Alves returns, as I mentioned earlier, but after that, it's a bunch of guys who we don't really know. There's some potential, definitely. Fernando Timbo is an international signing from Brazil, and you've got Boassi and Richie Balcan, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. He came over from the Rowdies. And you have Kyle Porter, who was an Atlanta Silverback, who's going to play as a wingback, apparently. So those are big question marks, and the toughest thing for a back line is familiarity, to get to know each other, and until that happens, you could see a Fury defense, which you couldn't say that about them last year. Well, we'll see.
So, Dio, you talked about it earlier of how Paul Dalglish is maybe not really selling the Fury, selling the city, and I remember you talked like a couple of months ago about how Marc Dos Santos, how he sold the city good, how he got Paiser in just by selling him everything that was going on and his project within the club.
Yeah.
So,
I want to sort of temper like what I said about Dalglish. That's just speculation on my part. I haven't heard anything, murmurs from players or anything like that. I have a full-time job, so I can't chase that kind of lead.
Yeah.
But I'm just speculating based on my knowledge of watching sports my entire life. A new coach comes in and a whole bunch of players want out. You put two and two together, and again, it might be a money issue. It might have nothing to do with Paul Dalglish. Perhaps he's a fantastic head coach with a great charisma who can bring in players, and he has brought players, obviously. They had to replace the ones who left. But you contrast that to Marc Dos Santos and the way that he was able to sell a city sell the city that wasn't a soccer town, right? It was an outpost, really, when the Fury project kicked off, and he was able to convince a lot of good players to come here. Now, did he oversell, and that's why players are leaving? That's another theory, right? That he oversold what Ottawa is, or he made promises to players that couldn't be fulfilled. Again, we don't know. We just don't know, and so we're stuck with the speculation. I'm hoping to sit down with Paul Dalglish before the season, after a few preseason games have been played, is when I'm slated to speak with the head coach of the Fury, and I'm looking forward to meeting him. He looks like a really engaging person when you're watching videos online and you read articles about him. He seems like a really engaging guy, and I'm looking forward to that. And so I'll be able to report back to you my impressions of the head coach once I do sit down with him and have a chat.
So on Twitter, right, there has been so much pictures of training, so much pictures of behind the scenes during the off season, and what's weird is that they don't know what they're revealing in multiple cases. So number one is Rayo OKC. So I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, they tweeted out a picture of the players for a meeting with Alan Marcina, and they took a picture of players that were not officially signed with the club yet, announced, but they were, like, you know what I mean, like they signed with the club, but they weren't officially announced. So now you have their official Twitter account tweeting this picture of, number one was Lance Parker, a former goalkeeper of FC Edmonton. Eddie's fans didn't know that this player left. But yeah,
wow. I missed that. That was last night?
I don't know, a couple.
I remember seeing the picture because there was a former Railhawk, Jamie Dell. I mean, his contract had expired, and he wasn't a big-time player for the Railhawks last year. But I remember seeing that picture. I'm like, what's he doing there? But yeah, I know what you're talking about, John.
Also, clubs, when they're training in preseason, they even revealed the new match ball on social media. So whoever runs these Twitter accounts for these clubs, get it right. Try not to announce things that you're not supposed to announce at the moment. You know what I mean? Because if these things would have never gone through, we would have never known that Under Armour was going to be the match ball supplier, if that's what they call it. Yeah, and the official design is out there. I think the new president of Indy 11, for some reason, he tweeted it out. So the new NASL Under Armour match ball design is out there. And this week it is the NASL League meetings, so hopefully they're talking about some important things for the league. So we're going to end the show with this, starting with Jason. What do you want the league to talk about in the league meetings this week?
Well, I would love for them to bring back the idea of pro-rel talks. That's never going to be a dying topic until it eventually happens. But I mean, that's probably 10 plus years out. But I really want them to talk about opportunities for further expansion and the right markets to potentially consider going forward. Because I mean, that's a long-term goal, but to more seriously talk about the actual markets that they want to be penetrating. So I don't know if that's on their docket or not, but I'd be curious to know what new markets are they considering.
For me, it's always nothing gets me more excited than growth of the league and markets that could be potentially coming into the NASL and cities that we could have rivalries with. And so I want to get news about expansion. I want to get news about the vision of the league. I think this is becoming an issue more and more as we move forward. What is the vision? What's the end game? there was an article this week that came out with Bill Peterson saying that he wanted to top out at 20 teams. That was the goal. Well, excellent. That's excellent. So let's see more of those types of targets. I think the league is getting a little bit more confident in terms of being able to make that kind of commitment or set some targets as they find their footing. Because, as I said on the NASL Nightcap a couple of weeks ago, you look around the NASL now, there's no weak markets, or there's no weak ownership groups, at least. It's all strong, and the owners that are coming in are deep-pocketed and solid businessmen who know what they're doing, and in a lot of cases are soccer people who have done it elsewhere. And so I'm really looking forward to more of that type of target setting to really know what the vision of the NASL is.
And my thing that I want them to talk about at the NASL League meetings is two things. But number one is that I want to see the NASL app come back, because at one time it was a very cool thing, and for some reason, I think because they were underperformed. This was a company where they produced the matches where you had to purchase to watch them, and I think the app was made through them. So if they would bring something back, more of like a news and just a very ambitious app, that would be very exciting. That's number one. Number two is a way where we can watch the matches on TV, all the matches on a nationwide platform. I don't know how this may happen. I did have one thought, but this could happen in 5 to 10 years. But NBCSN, okay, and hear me out on this one. This was just my thought, but hear me out, please. So the Premier League, right? It ends in May, right, or late April, right? And we start our season in the first week of April, so we can clearly have our matches maybe before the Premier League ends. Maybe one match Saturday night on the on NBCSN, because we're not competing with the Premier League because they play in the morning, in the afternoon. So NBC owns USA, owns True TV, and all these networks. We can have like 6 matches on Saturday night on all these networks because of NBC. Also, they have a streaming service online, so now if you're on the go, you can watch them on your computer, on an app and all that. So it's a very good deal if they can get it done, because a lot of people will be able to see this, not just fans of this league, but just soccer fans who watch the Premier League. Now they see, like, oh, we can watch Cosmo and Fury, or we can watch the Silverback. I mean, not the Silverbacks. I wish I could watch the Silverbacks. I'm sorry, Paul. So that's my thought. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I think the
TV
bigger
contract
exposure would be good. I'm sorry, go ahead, Theo.
Yeah, TV contract is the the Moby Dick, right? You want to get that whale. It's I think it's a little premature for a national TV contract for the NASL. I wish it wasn't. But realistically, I think we're a few years off from that. Like you said, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
5 years might be realistic to get there. And not only a national television contract, but production values that instill faith in the product. Some of these matches that we see coming in from some of the markets are absolutely horrendous. You can tell that it's kids at the community television level that are trying to get into television, and that's great for them, but not so great for us. And just an aside, that Ottawa's television broadcasts are done by community television, but the quality is pretty good. But I'd like to see some really professional graphics, some professional production value in those broadcasts, so that you really get a sense that, wow, this is important. This is destination television. We have to watch this. This is cool. So I don't think we're there yet. I think that's one of the obstacles that the league needs to overcome.
Yeah, my note on that was going to be very similar to Theo's, being the production value. And I think they did mention for the new ESPN feeds for this coming season, that they are trying to up the bar with that. So I look forward to seeing what that new production quality is going to look like on that Watch ESPN or ESPN3 feeds. I know that they went with One World Sports last year as a, I guess, branching out from just being a Cosmos thing. I don't know what the word is on what kind of contract they have for this coming season. I know they're still going with some Wednesday night matches, which was a One World Sports thing last year. But John, going to your point earlier, I would love for a channel like True TV or something to be able to play an ASL matches. I feel like that's fairly realistic. But again, within that window of time, that's not going to be this year or next. But as we start getting into more markets like Chicago, like San Francisco, that it's going to be more of a national thing to have national interest. So again, maybe I'd be surprised if it goes another 5 years, to be perfectly honest, because technology moves so fast, and the NASL has been kind of meteoric in the past couple of years with trying to expand. So maybe, I personally, maybe about 4 years, I might be looking for an opportunity to see those games on TV.
Cool.
So we, for the first time, had some news come through from a NASL club. So we're going to leave you with this. FC Edmonton announced today that they were going to announce some news, and they did announce that they have a new GM. His name is Jay Bell. He's announced as the new FC Edmonton GM. So best of luck to Jay Bell. We may talk about this next week on the show. FC Edmonton, what's the future for FC Edmonton with their new GM? So thank you everyone for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter at Total NASL TV. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you want to see a TV deal for the NASL? When do you think we may see that? Also, preseason, Rowdies going to England, China for the Strikers. That's very exciting times. And leave it a like, rating, subscribe if you're new, and we will see you next week.